Okay, so warm-up wise, we're going to solve this equation for y, which happens to be in two locations. So if you want to get y by itself, the first thing we're going to need to do is factor y out, which should leave you with y times x plus 3 equals 4x. Since you have y times x plus 3, let's go ahead and divide both sides by x plus 3. So you're going to end up with y being equal to 4x over x plus 3. Looks all good. Okay, new stuff wise, going to do some of your favorite word problems today. So we're going to need to write some of our own equations and define some variables. First thing we've got is the product of 8 times a number and 7 is equal to 3 times the difference between the number and 2. So let's kind of break this down. So if you look at the product of 8 times a number and 7, and then we've got that is equal to 3 times the difference between the number and 2. Okay, so let's take this first part highlighted in red. The product of 8 times a number and 7. Let's let x be our number. If I'm talking about the product of 8 times a number and 7, 8 times our number, the product of that and 7 would mean they're being multiplied together, so 8x times 7. We know that is equal to 3 times the difference between our number and 2. So if I do difference between our number and 2, that would be x minus 2. 3 times that difference would mean we'd have to multiply 3 times the quantity x minus 2. So there's our equation. Now we can go ahead and solve it. Sorry for my messy handwriting. Let me zoom in here. So if we're solving, we're going to have 56, still messy, 56x is equal to 3 times x minus 6. Subtract 3x from both sides. Gives you 53. X is equal to negative 6. Divide both sides by 53. And you end up with x equals negative 6 over 53. Writing the equation is the hardest part on these usually. Let's do some geometry. A right circular cylinder has a radius of 8 inches and a volume of 144 pi cubic inches. What is its height? Okay, back to your days of geometry. Volume. If you don't remember, you can always look it up online. I think there was a page in your book somewhere that had them, but I'm not sure I scanned all of the page with the formulas on it. So volume for a cylinder is area of your base times your height. Since the base on a cylinder is a circle, area of our base is going to be pi r squared, since that's the area of a circle. And then times our height, which I'm just going to call h. Okay, things that we know. We know our radius is 6 inches, so I'm going to replace r with 6. We also know our volume's 144 pi, so let's plug those in. It's going to give you 144 pi is equal to pi times 6 squared. H. Doing a little bit of simplifying. 144 pi. If I square 6 and multiply it by pi, that'd be 36 pi times h. Since all that's being multiplied, let's go and divide both sides by 36 pi. And if you simplify 144 by 36 and the pi's divide out, you just end up with 4 inches were measured in inches for your height. All right, hopefully you're hanging in there so far, because I have a little bit more. Length of each side of a square is increased by 5 centimeters. They tell you some stuff about the perimeter. Basically, there's a whole bunch of information going on here. So let's draw a picture. Here's a square. It's not a very good square, but let's say it is a square. We're taking this square. I'm going to label its sides as just x and x. And we're increasing the length of each side by 5 centimeters. So my new square still doesn't look like a square, but it's going to be a little bit bigger. If I increase each side by 5 centimeters, and it was x centimeters to start with, I'm adding 5 to the length of each side. So there's my kind of setup for what's going on here. The perimeter of this new square is 50 centimeters more than 3 times the length of the original square. Lots of words. Okay, so let's think perimeter of your new square. That is equal to 50 centimeters more than 3 times the length of the original. If I'm doing 50 centimeters more, it'll be 3 times the length of my original side plus 50. So for the perimeter of my new square, if I want an expression for that, I'm going to be taking all of these side lengths, which are all x plus 5s, and adding them together to get my perimeter. Easiest way to write that is, since there's 4 sides and they're all the same, probably just do 4 times x plus 5 for the length of my perimeter, or for the total of my perimeter. The length of my original side that's labeled in my square is just x. So equation-wise, we've got 4 times the quantity x plus 5 equals 3x plus 50. Solving it, writing it's the hard part. Solving it's the easier part. If you distribute your 4, you're going to have 4x plus 20 is equal to 3x plus 50. Do some rearranging, subtract 3x from both sides, and then subtract 20 from both sides. You'll end up with x equals 30. Make sure you answer the question because it says find the dimensions of the original square. So we found x. X was the side length in our original square. So our dimensions of this square are going to be 30 centimeters by 30 centimeters. All right, credit card.
High school students, don't forget to vote for homecoming king and queen before 2 o'clock today. If you did not receive an email, please see Ms. Irwin.
Woohoo! Flashback to Friday. So suppose the yearly fee for a credit card is $100. I would not have any credit card where you have to pay a fee, but you get a reward rate of 1.5% back for each purchase. We want to write an equation that models the cost of having this credit card and then do some stuff with it, but let's start with the equation. So cost of having this credit card. Costs you $100 to have this credit card, but you're going to decrease that cost because you get some money back on your purchases. So you get 1.5% back for each purchase. I'm going to change that 1.5% to a decimal. And then if my total amount of purchases is like X dollars worth of purchases, then I'll subtract that off from the $100 that it cost me to get this card in the first place. So there's my cost. If I want the cost of having this card, if I spend $2,000 a year on purchases, well, let's plug in $2,000 for my amount of purchases. Got 100 minus 1.5% of 2,000. If you actually multiply that together, oh, I don't have a calculator handy. That's 30. So you're going to end up with, even if you charge $2,000 on this credit card, you're still having a cost of $70 to have it in the first place. So unless you're charging a whole bunch of money on this credit card, probably not a good one to have. Try some homework, see how it goes.